Alright, the first thing I want to look at, guys, is more perimeter and area problems. And this time we're going to have dimensions that are binomials. Perimeter and area in terms of x, and it's a little bit different than the ones we've been doing this whole chapter. It involves what we learned yesterday. We did a little bit of this in our notes, but let's just make sure we know how to do. We're going to do all the figures. We did a square and a rectangle, I think, but we're going to add all those other fun ones like a circle and a triangle. So here's a square, and the side of this square is 3x minus 2. And our job is to find the area in terms of x and the perimeter in terms of x. Do you think you already know how to do this one? How do you find area of a square? Side squared, or side times side. And let me just tell you, when you've got a binomial, you really can't do that in your head. Some kids write it like this, and they think they can do it in their head. They square this and they square this, which that's part of it, but that's not all of it. Because a binomial times itself should give you how many terms? It should give you 4 terms. So you need to write it out side by side and do that little FOIL thing, or the distributive property over and over, however you like to think of it. Perimeter is not that much different, but area is different. Okay, so I'm going to do 3x times 3x, 9x squared. This one does get squared. Okay, and the negative 2 will get squared also. But here's what you miss if you don't write it out side by side. The outsides and the inside products. What's 3x times negative 2? Negative 6x. And negative 2 times 3x is another negative 6x. And then I get a plus 4 on the end. So I did get 4 little products. Now before I write my final answer though, I got to combine the like terms. So this would be now 9x squared minus 12x plus 4, and that's my area in terms of x. Okay, so that was area. Always make sure you label area. Now perimeter is really not that bad. It's really not that much different than what we've been doing. Perimeter of a square, well, perimeter of any figure is add all the sides. However, with the square we can take a little bit of a shortcut because all the sides are the same, and there are 4 of them. So how could I find the perimeter of this guy? 4 times 3x minus 2, which is 12x minus 8. There's my perimeter. Are we okay with that kind of problem? Basically, that's last night's homework that we just graded. Side times side is 3x minus 2 times 3x minus 2. Perimeter is stuff you should already know. Okay, and just real quick, let's talk about how that's different than the ones that we had already been doing. I had somebody ask me first period, how do you know when you have to write it out side by side? When it's got a minus or a plus in between some terms. This isn't a binomial, this is just a monomial. 3x to the third, and I want you to find area. Or when in doubt, always write it out side by side. It's just that this one you could probably do in your head. The ones with pluses and minuses in between, you can't do it in your head. What's 3x to the third times 3x to the third? 9x to the 6. And then perimeter, you just take the side and multiply it by 4. So what's the perimeter? 12x to the third. Please keep in mind, I've said it over and over, on area, your exponents are not the same as what you started with. On perimeter, your exponents stay exactly the same because you're just adding sides, adding like terms. Alright, let's do a rectangle. Let's do a rectangle 2 different ways. One with binomial factors and one with just monomial dimensions, not factors. Alright, let's say, I don't know, 7x minus 3, 2x plus 4, versus 7x to the third and 2x to the fourth. Find area and perimeter for both of those, please. Which one has to be written out side by side? The area of the first one. You can't multiply binomials in your head, really. Guys, if you ever go back and watch videos at night to review or whatever, remember you can fast forward. Like I'm still recording right now so I can give my classes time to answer it. But when you're watching a video, you can fast forward to the parts that you need. That's a good way to study as well. Every lesson we've done is on Schoology. Alright, so for area, I'm going to have to do 2x plus 4 times 7x minus 3. That's a binomial times a binomial. It's going to give me 4 little products. I'm getting 14x squared minus 6x plus 28x minus 12. And then my last step is to add those two in the middle. So that's going to be 14x squared, and these are like terms, I'm going to put them together, plus 22x minus 12. That's my area. And again, look what happened on my exponents. I didn't have any x squareds in my problem, but on area, I have x squareds in my answer because on area, your exponents will always be different than what you started with. But not on perimeter. On perimeter, I should just have plain old x's. All I do on perimeter, I usually just draw in the picture, draw in all 4 sides, and I count them up from the picture. 7x is 14x plus another 2x and another 2x. That's 18x, isn't it? And then I've got a negative 3 and a negative 3, which is negative 6. A positive 4 and a positive 4 is positive 8. So what's the total of a positive 8 and a negative 6? Positive 2. That's my perimeter. Alright, and then number next is just what we did in our chapter 6 stuff. You could do this in your head. Area. What's the area of this thing? 14x to the 7th. Now, perimeter, here's where I still have some kids messing up. Remember, perimeter is adding like terms, and if they're not alike, then you can't add them. So 7x to the 3rd can't get combined with 2x to the 4th. I can put a plus sign in between them, but I really can't add them because they're not like terms. However, there's another 7x to the 3rd over here to go with this 7x to the 3rd, so how many is that? 14x to the 3rds. Plus the total of the other two sides. A 2x to the 4th and another 2x to the 4th is 4x to the 4th. And I would probably write it the other way because I usually like to write the highest exponent first. But both of those would be correct. So this is what we've been doing. This only area here is the new stuff that we just learned yesterday. Alright, we did a rectangle, we did a square. What do y'all want to do next? Yeah, let's get the triangle out of the way. How do you find area of a triangle? Base times height divided by 2. Now, listen carefully. When you divide by 2, exponents are never affected. Dividing by 2 affects the coefficients. That means the number out in front of the x's and x squareds and all that business. And in this problem, you're going to have to divide every coefficient by 2. Okay, so the base here is 3x plus 4. The height is going to be 2x minus 2. I'll go ahead and draw in the other sides. We'll need that for perimeter, but we don't need the other sides for area. Do we want to do this one together? Well, you could at least do the base times height part. Do that part first. And again, you've got to write it out side by side and do FOIL. Base times height divided by 2. So that's going to be 3x plus 4 times 2x minus 2. I'm going to get that answer, and then I'll divide by 2 at the end. Okay, for base times height, I got 6x squared plus 2x minus 8. Now, I've got to divide that by 2. Sometimes kids write it like this and just leave it, and technically that's correct. I'm dividing by 2, but I want you to simplify it if you can. And we can. It's kind of like we're going to factor a 2 out of the top and divide out all the 2's. So what's my final answer? 3x squared plus x minus 4, right? 6 divided by 2 became a 3, 2 divided by 2 became an invisible 1, and negative 8 divided by 2 became a minus 4. That's my final answer. Did the exponents get affected when I divided by 2? No, they did get affected when I did the base times height. Alright, and then perimeter shouldn't be any different than before. Perimeter is you add up all the sides. Remember that height is not included in perimeter. What kind of triangle is this, by the way? It's isosceles. 2 of the sides are the same, the base is different. So you just add up all of the sides. What's the total of my x's? 13x. And then I've got a minus 14 and a plus 4. 13x minus 10 is my final answer for perimeter. So what's the hardest part about that? What do you mean? If the x's have an exponent? Yes, perimeter never ever changes exponents, ever. Okay, now, what's left? A circle. What did I do? Okay, here we go. Here's a circle with a radius of 3x minus 5. Now, circles are very much like squares. Instead of side times side, you do radius times radius. And then you also have to stick a pi on it, but we got to be careful about how we do it in this problem. You at least do the radius times radius part, and then we'll talk about how to write our final answer. The formula chart usually looks like this, radius squared times pi. You have to know that means I've got to multiply 3x minus 5 times 3x minus 5. Please write it out side by side. You really can't do that in your head. That's radius times radius, and then at the end I'm going to have to make sure the whole thing's multiplied by pi. Alright, who wants to tell me their radius times radius? Right, 9x squared, and then you should have gotten a minus 15x and another minus 15x, which makes minus 30x, and then a plus 25. Now please be careful. This whole radius times radius is supposed to get multiplied by pi. But if I put the pi on the end, what's the only thing getting multiplied by pi? 25. If I put it on the beginning, which I can do that, what's the only thing getting multiplied by pi? The 9x squared. So guess what I need to do to show everything? Parentheses around the whole thing. And that way pi is getting to every single part of that radius times radius. You can put it on the back, you can put it on the front, but you better have parentheses around the radius times radius part. Only for binomials, because the other ones, like let's say the radius was just 3x to the 5th. Well, 3x to the 5th times 3x to the 5th is just 9x to the 10th, and that whole thing is getting multiplied by pi when we stick a pi on it. If you wanted to put parentheses around this, you could. It's not necessary. In this problem, it's absolutely necessary. Okay, then circumference. Again, ooh, that was neat. Circumference is pi times diameter. I didn't give you the diameter, I gave you the radius. So all you got to do to find the diameter is double it. If the radius is 3x minus 5, what's the diameter? 6x minus 10. And then you just stick a pi on it, but be careful. Right, it's pi d or d pi. And I need to put, since I've got a plus or a minus in between my terms, I need to put it in parentheses. I could stick the pi on the end, I could stick the pi on the beginning, but it's got to be in parentheses. Alright, one more circle, but this time I'm going to give you the diameter to start with, not the radius. Alright, diameter of this is 10x minus 8. What job is super easy? Circumference is super easy. We could pretty much write down the circumference right now. What's the circumference? 10x minus 8 in parentheses, and then a pi. Or you can put the pi on the front, and then 10x minus 8. That's circumference. Now area is a little bit more work. For area, you have to know the radius. So what is the radius if the diameter is 10x minus 8? Right, and then you're going to do radius times radius, and then wrap the whole thing in parentheses and stick a pi on it. Alright, who wants to tell me what they got for radius times radius? Go ahead. 25x squared, then you would get a negative 20x and another negative 20x, which you said was negative 40x, that's correct, and then a plus 16. Now how do I show that I'm multiplying that whole thing by pi? Parentheses pi, and you can put the pi at the front or the back, but it's got to be radius times radius has to be in parentheses. So there's my area, there's my circumference. Alright, now, again, I want to make sure you're ready for our next exam. We'll probably do it next week over mainly Chapter 6 stuff, which could include all of this business too. Area and perimeter in terms of x. It will include area and perimeter in terms of x. We took a daily grade over Chapter 6 last Friday. Some of you did really well and some of you not so much. Your homework tonight is going to be very similar to that last daily grade we took. Here is your homework. Now, if you want to snap a picture of it with your camera, you can. It will be on Schoology as well, because this video is going to be on Schoology, so you can just get to this part of the video and pause it. These are the questions. This is a random sampling of stuff from Chapter 6. All of this will be on your next test. I'm going to leave it up here. If you don't have a camera, then start copying. You're going to have to write down the questions anyway. If you can't get it copied in the next 10 minutes and you don't have a camera, then look on Schoology. It'll be there. If you don't have access to Schoology at home and you don't have a camera, then start copying. I do have a few paper copies if you need to copy and you don't want to have to keep looking up here. So if that's the case, let me know. But anyways, you got 10 minutes, so get started somehow, some way. If you want to take a picture, and then put your camera up.